Hey there, it's Carly with the Expat Focus podcast. Some pretty big life events happened around the time Australian expat Rachael Kowald turned 30. She moved from London to Glasgow for the lower cost of living, returned to school as a mature age student, and then she decided to buy a house. Rachel's studying nursing. She also works as a carer for people with spinal cord injuries, and now she's a homeowner. In this interview, we talk about how she got into college and then university as a foreigner in Scotland, the different streams of nursing study that you can choose between there, the house buying process, and local living costs. Rachael, thanks for joining me on the Expat Focus podcast.
Thanks for inviting me.
I have to say, I am looking at the hoodie that you're wearing currently, and if you're watching this episode on our YouTube channel, Expat Focus, or on our website, expatfocus.com, you'll see that Rachael is wearing a beautiful, fluffy hoodie, as they call them, that is blue, and it has koala print on it, and I have the exact same one. It must be an Australian thing.
It is. It's an Australian company.
I should have known that.
Yeah. I have refused to put my heating on just yet, so I live in this. I've turned the lights on especially for you.
Oh, well, I'm really happy. Thank you for using some of your energy bill on this recording. I feel very privileged. You are speaking to me from Scotland. Mm-hmm. Can we talk a little bit about what came first for you? Going back to uni, or going to uni as a mature age student, or buying a house in Scotland?
So I actually went to college first because I'm a mature age student. There was this thing where they were like, oh, you probably won't get into uni. So go to college first. It's kind of like a bridge gap thing for mature. So I'm doing a nursing course. So I did access to degree nursing at Glasgow College at Springburn. And that was kind of like a bridging course kind of thing. So they said do that and then you'll get kind of guaranteed to get into uni.
And so now you are at university?
Yep, I started in September.
And what motivated you to go back to study?
So for the last 10 years I've been working in care. So I do live in care, so you can't really progress in that unless you want to start your own care business, and that's too much effort. So just for career progression really, and then if I do ever go back to Australia, it's like heaps easy to get a nursing job.
Spoiler alert, we met actually when you were living in London, and so was I. How did you find yourself in Scotland?
Well,
how did you come to be in Scotland?
Cheap rent. So everybody asks me this. So I work for the NHS up here, and like all the patients are like, why'd you move to Scotland? So my go-to answer is the weather and the hot men, which they just look at me like I'm bloody crazy. But yeah, it was actually cheap rent. So because I was living in London, and everybody knows how affordable London is. And doing live-in care, I was never actually at home. So there was no point paying £600-700 a month when I was never there. So I had a friend who lived in Glasgow and I knew he had a spare room. So like I just messaged him. I was like, do you want a flatmate? And he was like, yeah, sure. And then like 4 weeks later I'd moved up.
And you were pretty confident in finding work. If I understand correctly, the care sector is...
Dismal.
I was going to say, like, there's a lot of demand for people to work in the care sector.
Yeah, and because I was, like, doing the live-in care at that stage as well, so I had kind of like a permanent client, so he was down in Yorkshire, so it didn't really matter where I lived, so just travelling to him.
What's your routine like when you're a live-in carer?
So it's different depending on the client. So I work specifically with people with spinal cord injuries. And it depends on what their routine is like. So some people work, some people don't work, some people have kids, some people don't do anything. So just all different. But you don't really have, like, I think legally you're supposed to get 2 hours a day off work, but it's not set in stone. So you don't really have any time to yourself while you're there. So like last time I was at work, someone was like, oh, I'll come meet up for you for dinner on Friday. And I'm like, this was Monday. I'm like, I don't even know what I'm doing in like 3 hours, let alone what I'm doing in 4 days. So it was a bit hard to like organize your own life.
And so how long are your stints as a live-in carer? Do you do like 1 week on, 1 week off, or?
At one stage I was doing 2 weeks on, 2 weeks off, and then 2 weeks on, 6 weeks off. And then I went self-employed and I refused to work any more than 10 days in a row. So unless it's like I had a client who was going to like Italy for something and that like went a bit longer, but that was a fun thing. But normally I just don't work more than 10 days in a row.
And did you just determine that was your cutoff point, or you really needed a break?
You're like 24/7 with the same person. So I'm just like, I like people. I just don't like people that much.
I mean, that's a lot of people. A lot of the same person.
There's a lot of people in.
A lot of peopling. So now that you're at university, are you still doing care shifts, or have you kind of stopped that for now?
Yeah, so I have gone away from the live-in care and I do shift work now. So I have a guy I work with. I do 8 hours a week with him, so 4 hours on a Monday and 4 hours on a Friday. And then I'm on someone else's rota and I just kind of fill in when I'm free and when he's got gaps. And then I have 2 jobs within the NHS as well. So I'm a band 2, which is like the healthcare worker. And then I'm trained for the vaccinations as well. So
you're doing quite a lot.
Yeah, it just fits in. You just have to be good with your time management. And at the moment, uni's only 2 half days a week, which I thought was quite weird, but...
And are you on campus?
Yeah, so they told us it was hybrid study, which I thought maybe like some of the classes will be online. So I think technically we do have 3 modules this term. 2 of them are on campus, and they're like once a week, and this other one's like once a month, and that one's online. So... And then
how are you finding the university experience?
It's good. Like, I find that you need a lot of motivation, which I struggle with. So they give us pre-reading to do before we go into our tutorials. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. They upload a lot of things that it must be like from a throwback from COVID when everything was online. So they use a lot of the materials from there. So it's all like COVID relevant. Sometimes the links don't work.
University not exactly at the top of its tech game all the time.
Well, the university I go to also had a cyber attack in the summer as well, so a lot of things are getting blamed on that.
Well, you got to blame something. So tell me more about this enrollment process. You said that you were advised to enroll in college first as a pathway to get into your university course. What's the intake like at the Scottish university you're at in terms of mature age quota, and how difficult was it to get a place?
I'm not sure what the quota is, but it does seem like there is a lot of more mature students. I've only really met someone, like 1 or 2 people who are straight out of high school. Everyone else has got like a bit of life experience behind them. I know in my cohort, so my uni has 4 campuses, and the campus I am, there's about 150 adult nursing students. And then I think everyone in my college class got accepted to what they applied for. So I applied for 3 unis and I got conditional offers for all of them. So it was conditional on passing college, which was another issue as well because there was teaching strikes. So we never got our grades from college. I'm assuming we all passed because we all got offers from uni. But I emailed them last week and we were like, are we ever going to get our grades? So apparently the strike has been over, so they're collating it now. And they're like, oh yeah, you'll get your certificate eventually.
And being an Australian, did that change the process, the enrolment process for you at all?
I don't think so. So in Scotland, if you've lived here for 3 years as a permanent resident or a citizen, I'm a permanent resident. So if you've lived here for 3 years, you get free education. So actually, I just applied for college on a whim kind of thing as well. Like I knew I wanted to do it, but I wasn't really all that keen. I'd already written a personal statement. So I just kind of sent it like as I was chatting to my dad one day, and I just didn't read it or didn't read any of the things they wanted in the personal statement. I just sent it off and I got in. So, and then because it's I think nursing and doctors mainly both get a bursary. So I actually got paid to go to college. And
wow, that's nice.
Yeah, so they pay you tuition. So I think it was like $2,000 for the year, and then they give. The college bursary was 5,000, I think, from memory, a year. And then for nursing, I think it's just under £2,000 a year as well. And we get a £10,000 bursary.
So do you have any out-of-pocket costs to be studying in Scotland?
Not at the moment. So I think with placement, it'll probably just be fuel. And I've heard from other people. So I've put down to do a rural placement, which hopefully I get because that would be cool. And then I've heard from people in previous years that they had to pay up front for their accommodation costs and then they get reimbursed. So some girl was like, she had to pay $4,000 up front for like a 6-week placement. I'm like, who has $4,000 sitting around? So...
Well, especially now that you have a house, which is where I'd like to go next.
Yes.
Did you decide to buy a house before you decided to go back to study?
It was kind of like in the works. I think I turned 30 and I was all like, I have nothing to show for my life.
I've been there.
Yeah. Which is a lie, because like I've been to like over 40 countries and traveled and done this, and like I've moved continents kind of thing. So, but then like you see people at home and they're all like, oh, we built a house and we have a family and we have kids, and I'm just like, that'd be nice, but also like I'm just gonna go to like France for the weekend.
So when you decided, you turned 30, you had this crisis of maybe I need a house. Did you think, okay, where it makes sense for me to buy where I am in Scotland, or?
Well, I looked at the prices here and the prices at home. So I'm from South Australia, and I think you're from Melbourne, aren't you?
Yes.
Yeah. So like I remember the housing trust houses, so the semi-detached that no one ever wanted to live in because they were all dodgy areas. They were going for $430,000 at home. Back
in Australia?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah. So I've bought a 3-bed masonette, so it's in a flat building, $75,000, which works out to be 150,000 Australian.
£75,000.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So I told Mum that because she was like, "Why won't you buy it at home?" And I'm like, "Because of this."
Just a tiny like, price difference.
Fair enough. But I always thought, like, even if I do go home, I could always rent it out and become, like, an international entrepreneur.
Wow, so you found this great property opportunity. What was the process like to be able to buy? Did you have to go to the bank and get approval first for a mortgage before you could make an offer?
So I kind of knew I wanted to buy eventually, so I found a mortgage advisor, and I asked her, because I had no idea what the process was like in Scotland. I don't really know what the process is like in Australia either, to be honest, but and I was like, what do I need to do? She said, here it's kind of like you find the property first and then you apply.
So you go to the bank and say, this is the specific property I'd like approval for.
Yeah, and then they can like figure out your wages. I was quite lucky because the time I did it, I was just self-employed at that same stage and was making a ton of money, so she could use that rather than my now student budgets.
I was going to say, you skated in before you changed.
Yeah. One of my favourite pastimes is just like scrolling through Zoopla, just having a look, just see what's available. Oh, that looks nice. Never afford that, but that looks nice. And then I found this place and I just arranged to have a look. I brought my friends because, again, don't know anything about Scotland
you
houses.
Need a second opinion.
Exactly.
You need someone to validate your choices. Absolutely.
That's it. And then like I went back to the mortgage lady, put in an offer. No, I went back to the mortgage advisor, and then she sent me to a lawyer, a solicitor. And then you have to put in an offer through the solicitor. So that was, I viewed the house in 18th of December, and then I put in an offer like the 22nd, and then I think I got a phone call like the 22nd, 23rd.
It was the Christmas house.
Yeah, whichever day was the
Christmas.
Monday, I think it was. Because I was down at work and I was telling my client that I've bought a house, and like I got this phone call and he's like, pull over, because I was driving at the moment. He's like, pull over and answer it, see what happens.
How exciting.
Yeah.
Right, so is it like a silent bid where you kind of have a price guide from the seller and then you just have to submit your offer and wait and see?
Yeah, so they do something called a home report. So it's got like it's pretty much like your MOT. So it has like advisories, like, oh, you should update your windows. It's got your energy report in it. It's got other things that like suggest how to up the energy rating and something else in it, and just tells you what's wrong with the property kind of thing. And then it's got like the market value of it. So I think it was 70,000 from memory. And then, so I think I put in like 72, and then like that lady emailed me. I was like, are you sure that's all you want to offer? So I was like, so then I put in like 74 and a half, and then I was like, oh, I could have saved that money. Because you still have to pay the solicitor and the mortgage advisor. So I think the solicitor's bill was like $1,500 and the mortgage advisor was $500.
And did you know if there were other bidders?
There was another lady who'd come to look at the property at the same time I did. And then, like, the estate agent said, oh, yeah, well, you know what? I guess they just do it to, like, up the ante, though, as well. Like, oh, yeah, like, someone's put in a bid and someone's done this. So I think there was, like, 2.
And as a permanent resident, did that mean that all of the mortgage conditions and process was the same as if you were a Scottish person applying for a loan?
I think so. I got a 95% mortgage. So the way it works is your mortgage is based on the home report. So anything that you pay above the home report, you have to pay out of pocket. So I'm not very good at math. So 70 grand, my mortgage was 66.5. And then I had to pay the extra 4.5 out of pocket.
So we talked about the crazy price of homes in Australia, and that was your motivation for buying in Scotland instead. And you said you bought your place for about 75 grand. So is that pretty typical of house prices in your area?
I had never been to this area of Glasgow before, and I just saw on Super. I thought, oh yeah, it's a decent price, I can afford it. So talking to some of my friends, it is not the best area. I don't have any problems. I'm like surrounded by old people that have lived here 30, 40, 50 years, so I'm fine. But I think relatively around that, and then I think the most expensive place was probably 120 odd. But then if you go to other areas in Glasgow, like you're looking a lot more. So that's why, because I lived in Shawlands before, which is like a gentrified area. People are like, why didn't you buy there? And I'm like, because you can get a 2-bed flat for like 240k. 3-bed.
Compared to 3 bedrooms
75.
Under 100, yeah. Just call it up and coming, in another 10 years.
Exactly, yeah. Well, they said that because this is kind of like a village, and then like 10 minutes away is the main town of Paisley. And they keep going on about how that's rejuvenating and going to be the next big Shawlands kind of gentrified area. So
through this process, was there any part of it that you found a bit odd or was different to what family and friends in Australia were telling you the home buying process was typically like?
I think all my friends in Australia have pretty much built their own properties. And then like my parents have bought their houses. But the thing I found weird was when you move into a property here, you only have 7 days to see if there's any issues. And then if they're over like £400, then it's the seller's responsibility to fix. So I moved in and I had issue with my plumbing.
But did you find it within 7 days?
Luckily, yeah. Because I didn't even know about this course. So I was like, what? So I messaged my solicitor and I was just like, I've had this issue. And he's just like, see what it's like, get someone in if it's more than 400.
So you found the plumbing issue within the 7 days. Were there any other issues that cropped up?
More plumbing issues.
Oh, no.
More plumbing issues. I had a bath one night and I could hear this noise. I was like, that doesn't sound right. But I was already in the bath, so I was like, I'll wait till I get out. Like 4 hours later. I got out, I went down to the kitchen, so I've got 2 stories. And I went down into the kitchen, there's water coming out of my downlights.
Oh no. Oh wow, that's dangerous.
And then, yeah, I think it only cost, it all up, it was like 250, 300, so it was under the 400.
So based on your experience with this buying process, looking back, is there anything you would have done differently buying another home in Scotland?
Probably have more of a deposit. Because every time I look at my mortgage, like you pay so much and then the interest gets put on. So my mortgage is 330. So I put that and it goes down, which is exciting. And then the interest gets put on and that's 285. Like, so what? I'm only paying like 50 quid a month. So
okay.
That's
so can you make extra repayments? Because I know here in France, if you want to pay extra on your mortgage, the bank can actually penalize you.
Yeah, same here. So
for paying it early, which was a completely foreign concept to me from Australia. I don't think they penalize you for paying early in Australia.
Yeah, so it's quite similar here, I think, especially with a fixed mortgage. I think you can only overpay a certain amount before they penalise you. But I think if you're on a variable, I don't think they do, but I'm not 100% sure. This is like one of those things where they're like, oh, you should know this.
I feel like in Australia, if you're moving into a new rental or a new home, it's professionally cleaned, it's ready for you. Here in France, they don't tidy the house for you. So it's covered in dust. Sometimes there's stuff left behind that the owner hasn't taken with them, and it's up to you to deal with that. Is that sort of the same in Scotland? Did you move into an empty home or did you move into a clean home?
I moved into an empty home, but it had been freshly painted and freshly new carpets, which I heard out because one of the neighbours who's lived here forever knew the old tenants because the owner had rented it out, and she was like, "Oh, there was 2 people on the lease, but apparently 10 people lived here, and they never opened windows."
Oh my gosh.
Apparently. So yeah, so it was all freshly painted and new carpets and stuff. I just had to kind of wipe out the cupboards and stuff before I put anything in them, but it'd been sitting empty for 3 or 4 months. So garden shed outside, and that had a few things like some old paint and some garden tools and stuff in it. So I was like, oh, score.
We found some very useful step stools, actually, that we used throughout our renovation, and we're still using the old owner's garden tools and brooms and random things like that as well. So, hey, some of it comes in handy.
Exactly. Stops you having to pay that extra €5 out to buy yourself a new broom.
And Rachel, how do you find being a homeowner and managing a mortgage with being a full-time student?
So my bursary covers my bills. So I actually do a budget spreadsheet because I love a spreadsheet. I do spend too much money on food. But I think all my actual bills that I need to pay, so like my mortgage, my electric, what else do I pay? What's that thing you call that connects you to internet? Your internet.
Your Wi-Fi?
Your Wi-Fi, that's the one. My Wi-Fi, my home insurance. I think it comes to just over 500 a month. And then, so my bursary is about 770. So that pays for all the actual things that I do actually need to pay for. And then I just pick up shifts when and if I can. So I normally earn about 400 from the guy I work with twice a week. So that pays for everything else, really. So it's not too bad.
Sounds like you've got the budgeting down.
I try,
Pretty
but
well.
then I was like, the other day I was like, I'll do an online shop instead of going into Tesco, because I always go in for milk and end up with like 90 quid worth of food. So I'll do an online shop, still spend £95. So
Story of my life.
Right. I just don't have any self-control. Apparently I need 2 pallets of Coke.
And what's the ultimate goal once you're done with studying? Will you be staying in Scotland? Will you become a nurse? Where do you see your career taking you?
Oh, I don't know. So I also recently got myself an extra 95 kilos full of man. So that could
that's a really big dog.
could also influence my choice, but I don't know yet. So I'm doing adult nursing. So it's a bit different from Australia as well. So in Australia, you just do nursing, whereas here they put you into streams. So you have to choose if you want to do adult nursing, mental health nursing, pediatrics, or learning disabilities. I picked adult because I just thought it'd be easier if I do want to go home. It's easier to transfer your qualifications. I also thought like travel nursing would be quite cool as well. So I don't know. There's just so many options, and I haven't done any placements yet. So I don't know what kind of like clinical area I want to work in yet. So
You might fall in love with rural Scotland.
I do actually love the Highlands. I'm already there. So I put down to put a rural placement. I was like, send me to the islands. I can practice my Gaelic as well.
So just finally, Rachel, what's your advice for anyone else? A, looking to study in Scotland, or B, looking at the housing market?
I say for studying, wait till you live here for 3 years, because then you can go for free. Which is the best advice.
Pretty good tip, yeah.
Especially when it's like, if you come as an international student, I think it's about 12 grand, and then a year. And I think even if you come from like the rest of the UK, it's still quite expensive. And for house buying, just wait till you find something that you actually like as well, and that meets your requirements. So mine were, it has to have a bath, it has to have a garden, and it has to have parking. So I have 2 out of 3. Although it does take me about 3 hours to heat my bath, but...
Oh my gosh.
I know.
God, I think we need a whole nother episode on what is going on with heating in Scotland. Just looking at you right now.
I'm actually sweating too much now. I was like, oh, you've got me stressed.
And then she can't warm up her bath. My gosh. Well, Rachel, thanks so much for sharing your experiences on the Expat Focus podcast.
Oh, thanks for having me.
That's it for today. If there's a country or a subject that you'd love to hear about on the podcast, let us know on social media. We are Expat Focus. Head over to expatfocus.com and sign up to our newsletter to never miss an episode of the show. And I'll catch you next time.